Perhaps the most famous episode that's found in the Parshios Chukat and Balak that we lay in the Shabbos is the story of Mei Meriva. The story as we know it, which is found in source number 1, is that Moshe Rabbeinu had a group of people, Klal Yisrael, who were starving for water. Vayarev ha'am im Moshe, and they argued with Moshe Rabbeinu. So Kadosh Baruch Hu said to him, Kacha tamata, take the staff, and you should speak to the rock in front of their eyes, and it will give forth water. So Moshe Rabbeinu takes the staff, he gathers the people together, and he says to them, Shimu na hamorim, listen you rebels. Hamina sela zen notzila chamayim. Do you think that from this rock we're going to bring forth water? Moshe Rabbeinu lifts up his hand, he strikes the rock twice, and a lot of water comes out. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe and Aaron, Yan lo hemantim bi lakdisheni leinei bnei Israel. Because you didn't believe in me, or cause others to believe in me, lachein lo tavir tagalo zel haaretz asher natati lahem, you will not be privileged to go into the land of Eretz Yisrael. So the obvious question that we need to ask ourselves is very simply. The question is, how are we to understand what went on in this entire story? And in fact, the Rechaim HaKadosh lists all the various options that there are of what went wrong. And the Rechaim HaKadosh, as well as the other Mefarshim, say is, Sachakol, we don't know. We don't know what exactly, there are many options, there are many suggestions of what exactly was the chait, again, the chait, the sin of missing the mark on the level Moshe Rabbeinu went on here. I'd like to just present perhaps the 3 most famous approaches, that of Rashi, that of the Rambam, Maimonides, and that of the Rabbeinu Hananel that the Ramban quotes. And the focus I'd like for today is not so much to try to figure out, well, what did he do wrong, because that's not our place, but rather what Musar Haskel, what lesson can we learn from each and every approach so that we can enhance our own avodas Hashem, we can enhance our own relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So let's see these 3 approaches. Source number 2, Rashi explains that the fault lay in Moshe's disobedience of Hashem's word. Commanded to speak to the rock, he had no right to lift his staff and deliver a blow. Through this action, a sanctification of God's name was forestalled. For were the people to have received water through an act of speech, a moral lesson would have been conveyed to the children of Israel. The nation would have witnessed an object performing its Creator's will voluntarily, threats and physical force rendered unnecessary, and this lesson could have been extrapolated and applied to themselves, each person meditating on how his Creator's will should ideally be performed. So explains Rashi that there was a kal v'chomer that could have been learned. That if the rock, who is able to obey God's will just through speech, how much more so should we obey God's will without any coercion, without any force, but this should be miratzonam hatov, from their goodwill. That's the approach of Rashi. The Rambam notes a different approach. It was, listen now, Shimu Nahamorim. It was the anger that Moshe Rabbeinu expressed. That was the problem. And as the Maharal notes, at any place where there's anger and a lack of simcha, it's symptomatic of a lack of amunah. Because if a person has faith all the time, they will be in a constant state of amunah, of faith. So it was the anger was the element of missing the mark. And the Rabbeinu Hananel, the 3rd approach in the 3rd paragraph in source number 2, highlights a grammatical nuance which in his view encapsulates Moshe's sin. Notzi lachem mayim, shall we bring forth water? With these words, Moshe suggests that he has some power through which water will be forthcoming. Instead of saying Yotzi, Hashem will bring forth, Notzi, the nun is we will bring forth. As if to say it was Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen who were going to be the agents to bring forth water. These 3 approaches are what I'd like to, Bezrat Hashem, examine together to see what we can learn for our lives. Before we begin, I'd just like to share, I think, a very fascinating insight that the Sefer Migdash HaLevi points out. He says in our Tfilas HaGeshem on Sukkot, when we daven for rain, and we mention the different attributes of great people, and in their merit we should have rain. So when it speaks about Moshe Rabbeinu, right, Zachor Mashui b'tevat Goma min hamayim, remember the one who was drawn from that basket from the water. So in this little piyut it says, Al hasel lahach vayetzu mayim, on the rock he hit and brought forth water. B'sidko, in his righteousness, chon chashras mayim, bring forth water. So the obvious question is, here, which seems to be clearly a sin of Moshe Rabbeinu, in our tefillas we're using it as an advocate. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock and brought forth water, and in this merit, Hashem